All right, and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Sports Insiders. I am Denzel Snipes, and that is the sports agent himself, Sean Russey, and we're coming to you live on multiple platforms. We're on YouTube. You're probably watching us on X or on JB Ellis's LinkedIn. Before we get started, follow us on all of our platforms. Once again, JB Ellis's LinkedIn, on X, on YouTube. Also, we've got two TikToks at Sideline Sports and at Sideline One Sports. At Sideline One Sports is run by our guy Jacob Christner. So tune in to all of his great takes on there. We're also on, of course, Instagram and Facebook as well. So before we get started, Sean, how you doing, man?
No, everything's going good, man. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. So we came off of in my opinion, a pretty good SummerSlam. But I know we have a little bit of issues to talk about here. And of course, let me put it up on the screen here. And this is our SummerSlam 2025 recap and the numbers associated with it. So starting off here, of course, it was announced during SummerSlam night one's attendance at MetLife Stadium, which this is the third PLE pay per view or whatever that MetLife Stadium is hosted. The first was WrestleMania. What was the one in? 28. I think it was 28 or 29 back in 2013, and then it also had WrestleMania in 35. In was it 35? It was 35. Yeah, in
Yep.
2019. Night one's attendance 53,161. Night two's attendance 60,561. Um, so we still don't have the final TV numbers just yet. But as of right now, two as it stands, 250 million viewers watch SummerSlam on streaming services. So thoughts about a couple of matches. So Cena Rhodes 2 Street Fight. Which one was better, the one at Mania or the one or this one that just passed?
I think this one went a lot better, but I think obviously at Mania, I think they purposely had Cena moving slow to sell the whole heel thing. And then obviously we had the whole 15-minute Travis Scott interruption, which I think really dysfunctioned that match. Um, but I think this one was great, and I think Cena, gave 120%. Obviously we did a little bit of kill 3 to 5 minutes, circling the arena, but I thought they did a good job coming up through the arena floor like Cody does, with Cody on Cena's back. I thought they, kind of did great of using the entire arena versus just, actually walking that 20 feet, holding the guy. They stopped. They used different spots. They used the guardrail, which you don't see that one much in WWE. That
Very
was more of
true.
an old school. You don't see that one much at all. So that was a nice spot to see. But no, I think that's right up there, right with Rhea and Io for match of the year.
Okay. So, are we headed towards a Reigns Rollins Punk 2? I say yes, I just don't know when. As of right now, my prediction is Sami Zayn's going to win the Royal Rumble and challenge Rollins at Mania for the World Heavyweight title. However, we very well may see a Reigns Rollins Punk 2 in a world title match, perhaps at the Royal Rumble. I know Reigns right now, did you mention it in your notes any? Um as a matter, yeah, you know what? I'll wait till you bring it up. I was going to bring up something about Reigns. But what are your thoughts? Are we headed towards a sequel of what they did at WrestleMania?
Uh, I, I think we could be. I wonder if the payoff is earlier because I don't know if you want the same thing main eventing when it's not a singles bout or like you pointed out. Eventually, like we talked about off the air, eventually we've got to get to Cody and Reigns 3, which headlines another Mania, right? But I don't know if a triple threat necessarily should headline another Mania, Royal Rumble, or maybe even I can't see them doing in that Survivor Series, maybe Elimination Chamber right before Mania to kind of put up in the air who the champ is going to be at Mania. Kind
True.
of dangle that carrot a little bit. Um, but I don't know if those three necessarily. I think it's a disservice not to them. It's a disservice to one other talent that one of those three could easily elevate in a singles match.
True. Very true. And so, a couple of notes here. Where does LA Knight fit in? Well, as far as LA Knight goes, I don't think it's his time just yet. However, involving him with a main eventer like Seth Rollins, with Roman Reigns and everything like that, that's kind of getting them warmed up for like the biggest stage, you figure, right? Um, I think he's gonna have a couple of may not be a direct match with Rollins again, or with Reigns, or even with Punk or anything like that. But I could see him having some big matches against not only Bronson Reed but Braun Breaker as well.
Yeah, I think that's where we're headed with him because he's not gonna. He's kind of like a fourth wheel in this picture, but he's in there because of the whole injury angle, so you can't just throw him away from it. Um, I hated that the payoff for him was the Monday Night Raw match. I would have liked them to maybe save that for Saturday night's main event. I think Knight and Rollins was a good match until they did the whole injury angle. That I think those two work well in the ring. Monday was more about putting the vision over again, which unfortunately for me, we've ended the last 3 or 4 shows I think in the same manner. So hopefully they start figuring out kind of where Night fits in, how we can kind of change the endings a little bit versus it always being Bronson and Reed just kind of tearing up tables and whoever may be out there at the time.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And then so the whole thing on as of late, I'm sorry, Bronson Bronson Reed's gonna have a Foot Locker by the time next WrestleMania gets here. I thought it was hilarious. I know you're not really a big fan of it, but me, I thought it was funny. As soon as I saw him go for rain shoes for a second time, I was like, "Come on, man, you can't let this happen a second time." And he's wearing them out to the ring. I thought it was hilarious to me.
So the funniest thing to me, and because I'm a shoe guy and I followed Roman outside of the ring, and I know he's a shoe guy. He's wearing what you would say are commons the nights that he steals the shoes. On other
Yeah,
nights he's wearing those really exotic, the Scots and other ones. But the nights on Bronson stealing the shoes, we're wearing ones that everybody's got.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Um, but was all the was stirring up PTSD of the Viagra on the pole match. I remember that. That was I don't think it's gonna go that far. Um, maybe just maybe it might be something that Reigns takes from Bronson Reed, and then that will force them into a one-on-one. Again, I think the angle is hilarious. And it's kind of a byproduct of the feud right now. You figure, you know what I mean?
I think that's where we're headed to. He'll face Bronson first, and then Breaker, and then eventually he gets to Seth. But it's a way to make sure you don't have to do him and Seth so early.
Absolutely. And you know what? Speaking of Seth Rollins, going right into Rollins, the rules of the century, in which I admit it, okay, I read a dirt sheet or two. I came across something that Dave Meltzer had said. He said he had an insider that had knowledge that the injury was not serious, and I said, "Oh yeah, it's coming. They're gonna play this off like it's terrible." But the biggest thing to me that stood out, the biggest thing to me, was the fact that they didn't take the briefcase off of him. Now I know they sold the whole he has until next June, and technically they were correct, but we're talking about the Money in the Bank here, okay? Even if he was out until next WrestleMania okay, you figure you don't want to do him cashing in at WrestleMania again. It's already been done. The mystique is gone. Someone else does it, cool, a la Damian Priest. But Rollins again, the mystique is done. So you don't want to do that. If he's out until next May, no. Okay, now if he would have returned back in November, December, okay, that might be plausible. You know what I mean? But I was like, no, if it was serious, they would have taken the briefcase away, even if he had 12 months.
Yeah, no, and I think, just based on historical references, they usually make sure the briefcases are out of the picture come Survivor Series.
Yeah,
It's very rare that someone's holding it going into Mania.
that's true.
Um, so that there is usually out of the picture well before the Royal Rumble happens. So I'm with you. It kind of came off to me, and it just looked odd in the ring because even Knight looked like he didn't understand what had just happened. Like he wasn't sure that Seth actually got injured on that move. That's how many people they didn't tell.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that then he took a quick loss. it kind of reminded me of him actually cashing in, where Orton beat him kind of quick at the beginning of the show, and then we came back later and we were okay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because he absolutely. Oh, and one of the best RKO's we'd ever seen. Um, but um, but yeah, that one right there. I was like, you know what? Yeah, it's not serious. They're playing it off. He's gonna cash in at, and then he showed up on crutches with the knee break. Now, you know what? Let's go into the match real fast. I know it's not scheduled on here, but just real quick. Your thoughts on CM Punk Gunther? Didn't it kind of remind you of WrestleMania 15, the first time Reigns faced Lesnar, and Lesnar was dragging him all match, and then Reigns pretty much had to wait until Brock made a mistake, and then he went for the
Yeah, hit
kill.
the post.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep, and it kind of reminded me of Lesnar Cena, where Lesnar gave him like 20 suplexes, and Cena didn't get up on that one though. That was one of the rare times where the babyface still didn't turn around after such a beating.
yeah,
But you kind of felt after the match started to go, and then as you and me were watching, the ref's still in the ring while he's celebrating, so you're just kind of waiting, like, all right, what's going on?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and as soon as the music hit, I was like, "That's it, it's over." You know, I mean, Punk, got his moment at that time period, and then Seth came along like the thief he was and stole it away. But actually, we're gonna switch back here to Roman Reigns. So your thoughts on Roman Reigns? Because my thing is this: I am of the thought that Roman Reigns, he's on his way out. He's done it all. I think he's going to follow his cousin into Hollywood. In which, you know what? We'll get to that in just a second. Go ahead.
No, and so it's rumored that he's got 2 to 3 years left on this one, the newest one he signed, which was a 5-year deal.
Hmm.
Um, so you figure he's at least gonna finish that out. I really think Hollywood kind of depends on how well we do this with this Street Fighter movie. It's kind of like Batista. Batista was not great the first time he went to Hollywood, so he had to come back, and then he finally caught on when they figured out, hey, we'll just make him a Marvel guy, and he kind of fits in more. Um, but so it'd be interesting to see how he does. Whether he sticks. The Rock was not great early on. He took some time. And he came back several times when things kind of weren't going well over there. So we'll see how long the transition takes. But I think you're probably looking at tops 4 to 5 years, and then he kind of takes the Cena exit. Will show up once or twice, and then eventually, a couple of years after that, okay, I'm retired.
Yeah. Um, do we see the return of Dean Ambrose at one point to get them together one more time?
I don't know. They seem to be pretty happy with what he's doing over in AEW, and I don't know if he fits anymore with the programming the way he's taking matches over there. I don't know if he would come back creatively.
Yeah. Or you know what? Maybe, just maybe, you bring him back to WWE and we can finally get Ambrose versus Reigns versus Rollins.
Yeah, 10, 15 years in the making.
Yeah, we can finally get that triple threat match, and maybe it'll headline a Mania. One of these years. I'd love to see it. But speaking of him in Hollywood, he actually is. They actually are in the new Street Fighter film coming up.
Yeah, him and Cody are both in the film. It seems like it's going to be a quick filming, 4 weeks, so it doesn't seem like either of them are really going to take TV time off at this time.
I think now I don't know how true this is, but pretty much what happened on Monday, Reigns was expected to be written off television, not to return until right around Survivor Series.
Yeah, and now they've popped him up for a Raw on 8/18, and they've added him to the Clash poster. So things have changed.
Oh,
I think TKO is kind of telling them, hey, we're kind of slow here. You can't just put him off TV again.
yeah, that is true. I mean, and then also, like you said, as far as the Street Fighter film, they're only shooting 4 weeks. You said, right?
Yeah, and I think when you've got two guys there and one guy's willing to go back and forth, they're probably looking at Roman like, hey, he's top guy too. Why would you need the month if he doesn't need the month and he's willing to go back and forth? And I think it benefits them. They're about to be overseas, so they're going to be a lot closer to where the filming is. I think it all just happened to work out in WWE's favor.
Yeah, and you know what? Probably so. Because one you would think it's like if he's about to go and film, why would Rhodes win the WWE title?
Yeah, yeah, because then you don't want that off the air for a month right now. And they're about to start competing with Monday Night Football, and Friday Night Football in terms of college. So you don't want to slow down right now.
Exactly, and you don't want to go back to about what was it 8 years ago when Brock Lesnar was the Universal Champ and he was off TV for like 3 months. Like
Yeah,
you
at
did
a
not see
time.
the Universal Championship on TV in like 3 months, and so by the time it like showed back up, no one cared. People stopped caring about the Universal Championship.
Yeah, because he was fighting like once a quarter, like you said, basically just the one of the big four. Every time it was a big four, he would fight, and then he went away.
Yeah, yeah, and he go away for like another 2 3 months. So, but moving on here. Let's see here. Let's see. Oh, my bad. One more thing as far as Reigns. So has WWE backed themselves into a corner with the Solo Fatu angle?
Yeah, what? Let's get your thoughts on that.
Um, Not entirely. Reigns and Uso almost must get involved. No, not entirely. I think the Solo Fatu angle is an angle where they can handle it by themselves and they don't have to. I mean, yeah, you got Jimmy Uso, but for the most part, Solo and Jacob Fatu can handle their own because at some point in time, they're going to have to learn to do it without Roman. They're going to have to learn to do it without Jay. They're going to have to learn to do it without Jimmy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I don't think they did. I think they're doing right, because they don't have to be around each other all the time. Look at how they did the Usos. They split the Usos up. Jay went on Monday Night Raw and won three titles in the last 12 months.
and I don't know if you can have that foursome lose to the other foursome based
Yeah.
on who the other three are in Solo's group. I could see it being like Zilla, Fatu, and Tama, the other one that's still out, the brother that's still out,
Yeah.
and comes back and sides with Jacob, and then you got your 4 versus 4, but you don't overpower it.
Yeah. Yeah. Try not to overpower it or anything like that. Let me see. Oh, and then last but not least, Brock Lesnar shows up at the end of SummerSlam. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone expected to see Brock based on him being mentioned in the McMahon sex case, but the thinking is he's been cleared there. If not, WWE and TKO wouldn't have touched him. So it seems like he's been cleared is the consensus, around the internet. Um, and it's be interesting to see because the day after that same crowd is now anti Lesnar because of that case. But I think WWE definitely probably did their homework and understands he's cleared out of it to
Yeah.
have brought him back. I don't think John Cena can just be like, I just want to fight Brock Lesnar. I don't care what he's dealing with.
Yeah.
Um,
He wanted him
so
back.
I'm sure he's cleared of whatever legal doings he had been accused of in the McMahon case. And let's remember, he was accused of by a third party in the case, not even one of the women. It was some guy, I don't know if it was Laurinaitis. It was a text message that got him involved in the case. So who
In the
knows
first place,
how
yeah.
if he was actually involved or if it was just happened to be his name was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, I remember reading about this a year ago that he had been cleared because I don't know if you remember, but when it first stirred up, WWE actually took his name off the
Off.
website.
Yeah.
And then after a little bit, they added him back on.
Yeah.
And then I read that he had been cleared. So this whole last 12 months has just been a hiatus.
Yeah, and that's typically, he's had a great career, and I don't think he's in any want or need to do this full time. So when he gets a specialty match like Cena, yeah, he'll take it, but he's not trying to be around for long term story time lines anymore.
Yeah, 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 agreed. And I think that's the same path that Reigns is headed as well. But we'll move on here to our next topic. So ESPN/Disney, they reach a deal with WWE and the NFL prior to the streaming launch. How about it? A 5-year deal with WWE worth $325 million per year for every PLE WWE has to offer. So for those of you all keeping score at home, Monday Night Raw is on Netflix. Cable television is still going to have WWE SmackDown and NXT. Let's see, for the PLEs is going to be every PLE is now going to be on the ESPN app, and Peacock is still going to house all of the old like WWE stuff.
Yeah, and my understanding is the overseas viewers though will still be able to access PLEs on Netflix the way they are now, and they
Mm-hmm.
will still be able to access SmackDown and Raw on Netflix. So if you're overseas, you don't have to subscribe to this ESPN thing because you'll still get your package in Netflix.
Yep,
But if you're an NFL fan overseas, then you're gonna have to subscribe to this new ESPN service.
pretty much. Yep. For the current deal, Disney, ESPN, and bundle subscribers price it will rise $6 a month. New subs $30 a month or 12 a month for a base package without the PLE and NFL Network. ESPN will acquire NFL Network and other media assets from the NFL in exchange for a 10% stake in ESPN. How about that? ESPN will now control the price and distribution of NFL Red Zone. Your thoughts?
So I thought it was interesting that it's not necessarily an exchange of money versus an exchange in ownership in ESPN and an
That's what it
exchange
sounds
of
like. Yeah.
ownership of assets. Um, but they protected NFL Films, which I think kind of says that they're not thrilled about what ESPN does with 30/30. I'm not saying 30/30 is not good. I'm saying it's not up to NFL standards in terms of what
Standards.
they
Yeah.
like from NFL Films. So I can see why they kept that. But it'll be interesting to see if over the years they start to get more of a stake in ESPN and what direction that means for programming, what gets shared on ESPN, NFL Newswise before anywhere else, because now you have a stake in this company. So it'll be very interesting to see how it changes, just the NFL's news coming out and how that changes ESPN as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, a little bit more on this one. They will now control the prices. Yeah, at Red Zone. Okay. Um, ESPN Fantasy and NFL Fantasy Football will merge to create an immersive fantasy experience. You got 3 additional NFL games, but 4 of ESPN games must be aired on NFL Network, and ESPN will now have a total of 28 NFL games. NFL will still produce and own the rights to Red Zone. And finally, the deal gives NFL media heads flexibility to focus on selling its game rights again versus having to run the NFL Network. And your thoughts about that?
No, and I think that's where they've wanted to get for years now, especially since they're not doing as much as, hey, you can buy the entire AFC. They're really almost selling, especially on holidays. We've seen it. They're selling game by game. Hey, Amazon bid on this. Hey, Netflix bid on this. And they're selling each individual game just on Thanksgiving. So imagine now they can focus on, I'm sure they're going to focus locally first, like we talked about on a prior show, where teams could possibly see their own streaming services come in. If you're, say, a Giants fan, but you live in Texas, you
Mm-hmm.
subscribe to the Giants streaming service, and now you get every Giants game, and you're outside of Sunday Ticket, where you don't care about the other teams. You just want to see your
The
Giants.
Giants, yes, true.
And this is going to give them that ability that we've discussed before to kind of take teams, and basically teams are going to be their own media right company now.
Exclusive, yeah, that exclusivity. I don't know if you remember back. I'm sure you do. Back for the longest time through like the 80s and even into the 1990s, when networks had exclusive rights. Um, when the NFL was on CBS, this is way back in the day, they had exclusively NFC games.
Yep.
NBC had exclusively AFC games.
Yep.
When it went away from CBS to Fox, Fox picked up the National Football Conference,
Yep.
and NBC stayed with the AFC.
Yeah, no, and so I think a couple years ago, and it struck me at first, and you started seeing NFC games start popping up on CBS again, and you
Right.
kind of wondered what was happening. And it started then, but because they had developed this whole network, this red zone, you could see why they were not as successful as getting those things off the ground, in terms of individual media rights, when they were focused on getting those specific channels. And they did a great job. NFL Network, I think is right up there in terms of a informative network versus what ESPN is trying to be right now, which is kind of appeal to the younger crowd and kind of be informative at the same time. But I think it gets a little offbeat at times, where I think NFL Network really just focused X, O's, business, training camp, preseason, and it was just strictly, it's sports and football, and not any of this outside fluff that you kind of do get from ESPN.
Very true. Very true. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Sports Insider. Be sure to follow us on all of our platforms. So for Sean Rusty, I am Denzel Snipes. By the way, the Gauntlet Season 5 will return to the air in 2 weeks, 2 Fridays from now. The Gauntlet will be back on the air with myself, James Tatum, JJ, the Ravens aficionado, and Dom DeRubius himself, along with Ken Whitley. We're gonna the same magic, the same heat we've been bringing you the last four. We back for a fifth, baby. We back for the nickel. So tune in later.